It's a standalone hospital, but who actually owns it?
The hospital.
Yeah, it's the council.
No, because
City council, I got told it.
no, but you hear mixed messages. So I'd just like to know who actually does own. So the council own it.
Yeah. But the hospital own the building. It's paid for.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, but who owns the land? Because you know how L8's improved.
Yes.
So is there a hidden agenda for them to suddenly say, right, well, flatten that, put lovely houses on it, and boost the population of? And that's what I think is the hidden agenda behind.
We did think that that was a possibility following the Naylor review, because the Naylor review basically was a review of making money from NHS estates and buildings. But they would only do that if they said it wasn't fit for purpose. So that's why we think the case for change was constructed initially, but we don't know because they don't tell us. We can only speculate.
To say, your sister's just had an operation in Liverpool, and she was talking to one of the consultants, and the consultant told her that, look, you want to build a new hospital for the women's between the dental hospital and Classerbridge. And what she said was, it's in case babies get born with cancer and Classerbridge is there. Because that's something else, isn't it? Yeah. That's what she said.
We've leafleted the women's hospital and other hospitals. We've been on every single picket line of all the different health workers, and we've been out doing all the schools and community things and everything. But at the hospitals, you come away with half a dozen different stories, which shows you that the staff inside don't really know what's happening. And, you know, that's another, you know, now originally, they did talk about replacing the current women's hospital at the old Royal, but as Felicity said, that land is now, they're going to build a big sort of medical training centre and other things. So the other thing is that they're not going to get 100 million. They've been trying for the last 9 years. We told them 9 years ago, highly unlikely that they were going to get that money. They never have. That's why the things come to the fore and then gone back again. But they're not going to get that, and Kim's mentioned about not getting the money for new hospitals. Boris Johnson, if you remember, promised the 40 new hospitals, and those hospitals could be anything from a unit stuck on the end somewhere. But out of the 40 hospitals, as Kim said, I'd heard it was 18, if it's 25, but it's actually a direct quote from a health service journal, which is like one of these professional magazines about health, a very, reliable kind of verified articles, and said there will not be a spade in the ground till 2039 on most of this. So there is no way that you're even going to get anywhere near the bottom of the 40 list. And in Cheshire and Merseyside, there's actually a hospital at the far end of Cheshire, right out in Leighton, and it's got that crumbling concrete, and it is literally going to fall down. So is replacing a 30-year-old hospital in pretty good nick with all these improvements going to be a priority over something that is literally falling down? Well, I don't see how you can justify that.
Yeah. I think we got the feeling from the other lemons that they're actually looking at what they would like to do if they could move the women's would be to put lots of daycare there.
Yeah.
We know that daycare is how private medicine works, isn't it? So even though they're saying it would still be NHS, it's the way in for the daycare.
Hi!
My name is Dr. Asra Ahmed. I'm a retired medical consultant. I just retired recently. 3 of my children born in the women's hospital. And 3 of my children now grown up. And now I'm very emotional about this. I was in Sudan. My British citizen. I'm a dual citizen. Sudanese British. 3 of my children born. I was very moved by this quick action of trying to close down the hospital and these things. So just I came a bit late. I just get a leaflet here. I believe I want you to be updated because I'm very supportive of keeping this hospital.
Thank you.
And I'm sure if everybody's left their contact details
They'll be regularly updated in terms of what's happening with copies of reports and some of the pushback in terms of the rationale from the ICB.
I'd just like to ask, how many standalone hospitals are there in England?
2.
You have to finish this question.
How many standalone hospitals are there in England? And are they all being attacked like the Liverpool ladies?
Liverpool Women's is the only stand-alone maternity women's hospital in England. There are others which are called maternity, called women's hospitals, but they're attached to another hospital. We've had conversations with people who work at the Birmingham one, which is like just across the road from the main Birmingham hospital, but they still operate as though they're a separate hospital. But we're the only one, we are unique in the way it stands. But other maternity hospitals have been closed across the country. Really serious closures. And even we went to the Kirby engagement meeting, and a woman there who'd been in the forces, she said on one occasion she was having to give birth 40 miles away from where she lived. And that's not uncommon in this country. The number of closures of maternity units is huge. And there is report after report after report. We've got a list on our website of really serious reports, like public inquiries, held with under legal status, taking evidence and all the rest of it, about the deaths of babies that shouldn't have happened. Now we're waiting now for Donna Ockenden, who did the big report on the Shrewsbury babies, and we have links with the Shrewsbury babies, campaign as well. We are waiting for her to do a report on unnecessary baby deaths in Nottingham, and it keeps being put back, should have been published in November, and still hasn't been published. But there are dozens of these reports about how bad maternity is nationally. We really need to have that picture in our head that maternity services have been cut and cut and cut.
So why aren't they telling on the news? I mean, on the news you never hear.
You're not going to get that on BBC, definitely.
Yeah, I know they don't want us to know. It's a need-to-know basis like that.
Yeah, but they'd have to answer you then, wouldn't they? If people knew, there'd be an absolute... I'll do a history lesson in a minute.
And then Teresa, who's one of the long-established campaigners, you just said you'd like to say something.
The triplets, yeah.
Getting the message out. If you considered doing a human billboard, it's very effective for getting the message out.
Thank you. Teresa, do you want to... Yeah.
Oh, we're not using that, are we? Yeah, I just wanted to say, because some people get confused when you're talking about standalone. So we've always said Liverpool and Birmingham. Now on the Birmingham site, it's a separate site, and the hospital and maternity hospital about a mile apart, like we are from the Royal, they still transfer by ambulance on that same site into the hospital or into maternity. And on the question of safety, I believe myself personally, if you've got a facility, because of understaffing and underfunding across the country, with your quota of staff, you know what you're dealing with. If there was a maternity hospital on the Royal site and there's an emergency, they would draw up staff. Yeah. Women can't stop the labour while they wait for a doctor or whoever to come back. There's no clinicians at the Royal twiddling thumbs waiting for people to come in. They're worn out, they're inundated. And on the thing about Telford and Nottingham, Countess of Chester, etc., there's been a lot of never events, and they should never have happened, like a baby death or a mother and baby death. That's very low at the Women's Hospital. It is a safe site. And a lot of the disasters have happened in the co-located and integrated sites. So co-located is like Birmingham. Integrated means the facility is inside the hospital. And you have a team of managers there who I personally believe shouldn't be working in the NHS, because the consultants, the doctors, surgeons, paramedics, all the ancillary staff, midwives, should say how the hospital should be run because it's their machine. And we don't need people being paid lots of money like Boris Johnson's friends to come in and manage the hospital. So there's some of the issues that are a problem. That is a very safe site. They know it's a safe site. And the CEO of the Women's, who we knew for 9 years before she's just retired and got the gong dripping in blood, she wanted to move that hospital because she was just thinking about her retirement, a big pension, etc. I would say that to her face as well. Okay. So if that hospital goes, sorry, I do go on a bit, we're in trouble.
But yeah, passionate. Lady at the back.
The gentleman asked about the closures and standalone hospitals, but isn't it important to point out that the Women's is not being targeted because it's a maternity hospital? It's part of the Americanisation of health, as Rebecca mentioned in her message, and as Kath said, it's about opening up the space to the private health sector. So there's all sorts of hospitals being closed all over the country. Loads and loads of hospitals have closed and are still being threatened with closure. Like you've got Chorley Hospital, you've got St Helier in London. You've got it's not necessarily because it's a maternity hospital that it's being attacked. There's all sorts of hospitals being attacked, and it's part of the closure programme of the Americanisation of health. Because the only way you can make money out of ill health is if you don't treat people.
Yeah. Well said.
You can't make money if you treat everyone like the NHS used to do. So you've got to have, like in America, lots of people who can't afford to get treated. And you know, or if they do, they get into debt because they've got to pay for it. So I think it's important to kind of, it's not just targeted because it's a women's hospital or a maternity hospital.
I just wanted to make 2 points. If you read their document, which is 120 pages long, it's absolutely one thing wrong with the Women's after another. So according to them, there is no benefit to having the Women's in Liverpool 8. So why is it that so many people in Liverpool 8 wanted to be there? They didn't even mention that, which is pretty amazing. The second thing is this, it's a small technical point, but it's quite central to their argument. What they say is it's not safe because it doesn't have an intensive care unit on site. And so if a woman deteriorates rapidly, they can't deal with it. Now this is, and they say that that's against the national standards. This is actually a lie. What the national standards say, and as I understand it, this is what actually happens at the Women's, is they have a level 2 unit, which is not an intensive care unit, it's a high dependency unit, and if it's needed, then the staff there have the training to deliver level 3 care, the care that you would get in an intensive care unit for up to 24 hours. That's the requirement of the law. And they can do that. And then, if it isn't resolved within 24 hours, then the woman has to be transferred. And so she's transferred to the Royal. That's fine. When they say that the Women's is not complying with the national standards, they're lying. And that, it's as simple as that. But they come out with this again and again and again, and they build an entire case around it, and it's bullshit.
Thanks, Greg. And I think, you know, that's the case for lots of situations, isn't it? You know, there's always an alternative narrative and an argument in terms of pushing back. And I think it's incumbent on people in this room in terms of using the evidence that we've heard from both Felicity and Leslie and people in the room to challenge, you know, that narrative, you know, on an ongoing basis.
Just to follow on from Greg about the intensive care unit, you know, they've said to us, because we've said, well, why don't you upgrade the high dependency unit to an intensive care unit? And they have said the critical care network and the deputy medical director of the Women's actually said because there's low levels of activity and it wouldn't be feasible. In other words, so few people need
So a bit of a contradiction in terms then, isn't it then? Kim, sorry, did you want... something else to say, and the gentleman at the back afterwards. Have we got any more hands? Anybody else with any more questions?
No, I lived in Northern Ireland for 6 years, and whenever there was a problem with the babies, in the ladies and the babies, they were always transferred to the women's, because that was classed as the best place for them to go to, and that's why it needs saving, because it doesn't just only serve Liverpool and there, it serves Northern Ireland, it serves the Isle of Man, and it serves a hell of a lot of places, and that's why it needs saving.
Thanks for your contribution, Kim. Thank you very much. Then you've got back, and then, come to you. Wait a minute. Oh, go on. I'll come to you first, because you haven't spoken. Do you want to stand up?
Just wondering what yourself and the other Labour MPs for the city are going to do to try and fight with us to save this hospital.
Well, I would have to say that not all of the MPs in the city have my opinion and support it, you know, but I have been trying. And just to let you know that I have spoken on the floor of the House in terms of the women's. Wes Streeton was at a meeting this week, the Women's PLP, and I challenged him because he hasn't responded to the question, so we're going to be writing to him again to say, you've not responded, this is the situation. But it's not just the Liverpool MPs though, unfortunately, it is the city region MPs that need to be brought on board, and they're listening to the arguments from the ICB and the NHS, and that needs to change.
Can I just ask then which Liverpool MPs are actually behind us then?
I would have to say at the moment there's me and Ian Byrne.
And we've spoken to them and had a meeting with them, Paula Barker and all of them. So you're welcome to come round to myself.
But what I would say though, guys, in terms of writing to your MPs and putting this case forward and challenging the narrative is really important. Maybe going to see them after their surgeries and challenging them in terms of what they believe is not true. Who was that? I've just heard somebody had a hand up. Oh, Ruth, sorry.
Yes, just following on from what you said, Kim, it's very worrying that MPs are so naive in that they've read this document, which we've analysed tonight, and we've seen clear, and I would have thought fairly obvious problems with it. And they seem to have taken it at face value. And unfortunately, I think that may be a problem we have to keep facing with both medical staff and the general public, because there's a superficial plausibility when the great and the good come out with, you know, in very long sentences and with big words and say something like it's not safe, and that's a real problem we have to face. But it's kind of disappointing we have to face it with MPs who have all the resources in the world to really find out the truth about this.
And the trade unions as well, Ruth, so they need to be brought on board. Gentleman at the back.
I was in America 2001, I received a training in their hospital. This is the state-of-art hospital worldwide. Okay? And this is a point, they need to rob it from Liverpool. I was going to close Liverpool Football Club after that, okay? But this is horrible, and this is going to tick box medicine. Worldwide.
Oh yeah.
We have to do something urgently to save this hospital.
Oh yeah, and that's why we're here.
Thank
you, sir.
Just a quick one about MPs. My MP's Angela Eagle in Wallasey, and I wrote to her months ago, not had a reply. The other thing is, it was in the Integrated Care Board, there was a suggestion in the Integrated Care Board papers for the meeting yesterday that it could possibly move maternity from the Royal to Manchester. Now that's 35 miles away, not a mile away. And also, who wants to be putting Apologies for everybody. Who wants to say that you've been born in Manchester?
And I know that sometimes if you're a pregnant woman, you know, and you need to give birth, sometimes you can't go to the women's, you know, and sometimes there is a need to have to go to other maternity units, which is not ideal, and that's why it's really important. Lady in the white coat.
I was asked today at Garston why the Liverpool Royal are using facilities of the women's. A lady, she spotted me because I'm there, said that her father had been having treatment at the Royal, was in need of regular scans, and his treatment had been moved to the women's.
They've got an MRI and a CT scanner there, so it's ideal.
But
yeah,
the women's isn't suitable, and the Royal is so wonderful, we're all going to go there.
Yeah, they've got the two scanners.
Just specifically on the, it's called the Community Diagnostic Centre, and money, just nearly £3 million was put into that. There's not enough women who could use that service in the women's hospital to justify having that equipment and the staff. So the way to get the money to have that, because that was one of the things about women sometimes did have to be transferred for CT and MRI scans, not the sort of small scans. But the idea is that the community can be referred in from GPs and other areas. So it's actually, so that's not something we're against, as long as it's run and owned by the hospital, and it is. So, you know, so that's why there was a guy at the mosque today who said, you know, he went in for a scan, you know, and felt a little bit, but it was fine. But it's to the benefit of the community, and it means that the women can use it. And what they need to do with that is, it's not necessarily, some of it's 24/7, not all of it is 24/7. And so what we could do is, but again, this boils down to money, doesn't it? You know, but that's an improvement that we've, you know, that we have supported and campaigned for. And another argument they use is there's no blood transfusion service. There's going to be a robotic one in September 25, so that's another one of their arguments.
You're going to have to project your voice very loud at the back.
Sorry, bear with me because I've got learning difficulties and sometimes can't explain things. We're going off that when people are getting referred to other places to get their scans and MRIs, is that short? Does anyone know, is that shortened waiting lists for people who've been waiting so long and suffering for x-rays and scans? Has that improved? Has it helped? Does anyone know?
Yeah, just briefly. It has improved it to some extent because it means that people get their scans quicker. But there's a massive waiting list. The number of referrals since COVID for gynae referrals has more than doubled. So there's something like, it's over 10,000 women on the waiting list for gynae treatment, but it doesn't mean that they haven't had a scan. It just, the blockage, if you like, is not just the scans are not particularly the problem now. The blockage is having enough consultants and enough staff to carry out the procedures, and that's happening, as somebody said, all across the NHS. That's why you've got the waiting lists as well. So they're actually waiting for consultant, you know, enough specialists. But one of the things, for instance, they do at the women's, which again is pioneering, robotic surgery for endometriosis, which is very crippling, very painful, and women can wait 7 or 8 years to be diagnosed. And what recently a consultant did a presentation to a meeting, and he said if we had more theatre space in the Royal, we could do more endometriosis operations with the robotic and have more robots. And again, you've got to have the staff to do that and pay the staff. But these are all things that actually in the long term improve people's health, don't they?
Thanks. Thanks, Leslie. Any more questions?
Hi, so I wanted to say something about the women's hospital. I don't have kids yet, but I have people from my community and friends who gave birth in other countries, other cities, and then they came to the women's hospital. and they only had good things to say about the women's hospital. So it has a special place in a lot of people's hearts. And I think we need to mobilize every community, like talk about it maybe on clubs, on places of worship, and maybe get some communication, not in English, because maybe part of our community, not everyone is fluent in English, and we have to reach everyone in the community.
Thank you. No. Any more questions? If not, then I'm going to ask both Felicity and Leslie just to do very brief summing up. Oh,
sorry, I just want to know how, you know, when you said the trade unions are not in support of the move, can you clarify that a bit?
well, for example, GMB are a union that have staff in the Royal and the Women's. I had a discussion with one of the regional officers when they were in dispute quite recently, talked about the Women's, and they said they were in support of the ICB in terms of removing surfaces from the Crown Street side based on some of those issues and the narratives about it being unsafe. So that's why we need to push back on that. And if Leslie and Felicity draft, you know, the points that they raise and then those counter arguments that people then can go and take out to their communities, I think it kind of challenges those myths and the misinformation about why we need to retain those surfaces on the site. And some of the issues are about, you talk about having to blue light women, you know, and not having some of essential surfaces on site, and we've just talked about that in terms of the high dependency unit and stuff. So, and not having the right clinicians on site, but you know, the fact that there are national issues in terms of the recruitment and retention of some of these. You know, there was an issue in terms of recruitment and retention of midwives. I think more were leaving the service that were actually joining, you know, and when the previous Tory government took away bursaries, had a massive impact on, you know, 14 years of austerities had a massive impact on our services, Shukri. So I hope that answers the question. Thank you. And so, again, I will call on Felicity and Leslie just to sum up in a few words in terms of next steps, where we go, what we do.
First of all, we can win this. It's not impossible for us to win it. And it requires a huge campaign. And that campaign starts with people talking to each other and talking at work. Interestingly, that our campaign's been massively funded partly by the GMB. So I don't think they know what they're talking about. We had some very generous donations there. But we can win it, and it is down to, you know, literally go back to how we won the vote, go back to how women won the vote, go back to how women. My great auntie fought for, this is in the 30s, fought for the first baby clinics and the first contraception clinics in Liverpool. She won it. She won it. And she didn't have loads and loads of graduates around in the campaign. It was the women what won it. And the women can win it again. But we've got to be organised. We've got to be mobilised to do it. So I think we can win it, and I'm not half going to enjoy it. But I also think that we should be stressing it's an attack on women and babies, because that's what the human race is about. You know, we can't ignore the attack on women and babies. Yes, my youngest was born at the Women's, and I tell you, it was a hell of a lot different from being born in the previous hospital. It was like a change in a century in how much better it was. So we can win it if people know, and people don't know. You've got an idea at the moment that things are bad in the NHS. Frank and I were at the ICB meeting. We sit there and harass them each time, and we've written to them now for more than a year
about what's going on with the accident and emergency. It is awful what's happened in Liverpool this winter over accident and emergency. It's completely unacceptable. And apart from this lady and Ian Byrne, who's on their hind legs shouting about it? They have this new thing called temporary escalation space. They have. You know what temporary escalation space is? It's a corridor. But their reports say temporary escalation space. So we can win it. Please make sure we can read your name on the sign-in sheets. We will be in touch with you. We want you to take leaflets. We've got petitions with envelopes. You can take the petition and the envelope to get them filled in and then send them back to News from Nowhere. We want you to be involved, please. Let's build from this. You can say, we win it. You can say, I was at that meeting, that really launched it, that meeting. I'm one of the people who really fought for it. We can win it if we keep on going, and we really, all the different ways we can help. Talking to people, letting us know what's happening, talking to the staff, and incidentally, Carmel from the RCN was going to be here. That's another thing where, you know, we've not got a blank enemies in the staff, but the staff are going to listen to their bosses, telling them we've got to put our case to them as well. So please keep fighting. We can win it. Thank you. Okay, I've been asked to be short and sweet, so I will be. I think the point that Mary made about why the women's hospital, you know, that's true. There's been multiple hospitals, A&Es, beds cut. You know, the Royal has got 300 fewer beds than it used to have. This is all part of a concerted attack on the NHS. But one of the reasons they picked the women's hospital in 2015, and actually the head of the Liverpool body at that time actually went on television and said, too many hospitals in Liverpool, one's got to close. The Echo had headlines about, oh, it's the women's, because he thought it was going to be easy. And it's people like you and friends and people that you've spoken to who've stopped it for the last, well, it's more than 9.5 years.
10 years.
In March, it will be 10 years. Me and Phil have a bet. We hope to finish this campaign and win it before we're 80. Yes. There's 100 people in this room. If you talk to 3 or 4 other people, that spreads the word and ask them to do the same. Yeah, the trade unions, that's why, apart from Solidarity, we've been on the picket lines and we've been the official various meetings. We will do the generic letter and we will put details on the Facebook site. So if you do Facebook, go on our Save Liverpool Women's Facebook site. Take a poster for your window. There's a QR code that people can sign the petitions. Take a leaflet. But please just keep talking and keep acting. And when we have actions, please come and support them. And thank you all.
Massive thanks to Felicity and Leslie for providing the information. And there's lots of more people that would have been here tonight, but because it's a Friday evening, you know, and it is dark and dismal, you know, so there are people out there who are interested. And again, I will end by reiterating, as the constituency MP where the Women's is located, I will continue champion and challenging any move to try and remove those services from the ground. My Labour colleague from Liverpool and the City region. Guys, enjoy your weekend. You know, carry on fighting, campaign. And what I say is educate, organise and agitate. Let's keep agitating everybody.